The night my life changed forever started with a scream, not mine, my younger sister Ava's. 1 second we were arguing in the kitchen like we always did, and the next I heard glass shatter, then her body hitting the floor. My mother came running first, then my father, and somehow, within less than a minute, everyone was staring at me like I had done something terrible. She pushed me, Ava whispered through tears, clutching her arm dramatically. I remember freezing because I hadn't touched her, not once. But Ava had always known how to cry on command. She had mastered it since childhood. And my parents, they believed every trembling word that came out of her mouth. She's lying, I said quietly, still shaking from shock. I didn't push her, but my father's face hardened instantly. Enough. Emma, that tone. The same cold tone he used every time Ava broke something, lied about school, or blamed someone else for her mistakes. Somehow, the blame always landed on me, the responsible daughter, the quiet daughter, the daughter expected to understand. Meanwhile, Ava was the fragile one, the emotional one, the one everyone protected, even when she didn't deserve it. An ambulance arrived 20 minutes later. Ava cried dramatically the entire time, while my mother held her hand like she was dying. And me? I sat alone in the corner, invisible. But what nobody noticed was the sharp pain burning through my own side. When the paramedics finally looked at me, one of them frowned immediately. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" Before I could answer, my mother interrupted. "She's fine. Please focus on Ava." I still remember the embarrassment on the paramedic's face, but he looked at me again. And this time, I think he realized something was wrong. Because when I tried standing up, my legs nearly collapsed beneath me. That was when everything changed. At the hospital, my parents stayed beside Ava the entire time while I sat alone in another waiting area with an ice pack pressed against my ribs. No one asked if I was okay. No one cared. Hours later, a doctor walked toward me holding a clipboard. His expression serious. "Emma," he said softly, "we need to do x-rays immediately." I blinked in confusion. "For what?" He looked genuinely shocked. "You may have internal injuries." My stomach dropped. Across the hallway, I could hear Ava laughing with my mother. Laughing, while I struggled to breathe. And deep down, something inside me finally cracked. Because in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about one accident. This was years of favoritism, years of blame, years of being sacrificed to protect my sister's image. But what I didn't know that night was that the x-rays were about to expose far more than broken bones. They were about to reveal the truth my family had buried for years. The doctor returned almost an hour later. His face told me everything before he even spoke. "Emma, you have 2 fractured ribs." I stared at him in silence. 2 fractured ribs. I could barely process the words. "How?" I whispered. The doctor hesitated carefully before answering. "These injuries are consistent with heavy impact. Were you hit during the incident?" Before I could speak, my mother suddenly appeared behind him. "She probably fell while attacking her sister," she snapped. Even the doctor looked uncomfortable. I turned slowly toward my mother, shocked by how easily she said it. Like my pain meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. "I didn't attack anyone," I said quietly. But she ignored me completely. Her only concern was Ava. Always Ava. Then came the moment I'll never forget. A second doctor entered holding Ava's scan results, and his expression looked confused. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter," he said carefully, "your younger daughter doesn't appear to have any serious injury." My father frowned. "What do you mean?" "She has a very minor wrist sprain, nothing more." Silence. My mother blinked rapidly, but she said, "She is physically fine," the doctor repeated gently. I looked down at my hands, trembling, because suddenly everything became painfully clear. Ava had lied. Again. But this time, her lie had sent me to the hospital. The worst part, my parents still defended her. She was scared, my mother whispered later. You know how emotional she gets. Emotional. That word became their excuse for everything she did. I finally looked directly at my father. So my broken ribs don't matter. He sighed heavily like I was exhausting him. Emma, this family is already under stress. Don't make this worse. I felt something inside me die hearing that sentence. Not anger, not sadness, hope. For years I kept trying to earn their love equally. I worked harder, stayed quieter, sacrificed more, and none of it mattered. Because Ava could cry once and erase me completely. That night, alone in my hospital room, I replayed the accident over and over in my head. The truth was simple. Ava had slipped during our argument. After throwing a glass at me, when I tried moving away, she grabbed my arm aggressively, pulling both of us sideways. She fell first, but I slammed directly into the marble counter. That impact fractured my ribs, and somehow, I became the villain. Again. The next morning, Ava walked into my room carrying fake tears. I didn't mean for this to happen, she whispered dramatically. I looked at her quietly. No, I said. You just didn't expect evidence. Her face changed instantly. For the first time, the act disappeared, and underneath it was something colder. Something manipulative. You always make me look bad, she snapped softly. I almost laughed from disbelief. You did that yourself. Leaned closer to me. You think mom and dad are suddenly going to choose you now. That sentence hurt more than my injuries. Because deep down, she was right. But what Ava didn't understand was something inside me had finally changed. I was done protecting people who destroyed me. Done staying silent to keep peace. Done accepting blame just because it was easier for everyone else. When I was discharged from the hospital 3 days later, my parents expected me to come home quietly and pretend nothing happened. Instead, I asked for copies of every medical report, every x-ray, every doctor's statement. And when my father asked why, I simply looked at him and said, because the truth finally matters to me. That was the first moment I saw fear in Ava's eyes. A week later, my parents organized a family dinner. Not to apologize, not to check on me, but to move on. That phrase almost made me laugh. Move on from what? Being falsely blamed, being ignored while injured, being treated like I didn't matter. The moment dessert arrived, my father cleared his throat. I think we should put this unfortunate misunderstanding behind us. Misunderstanding. I looked around the table quietly. Wouldn't even meet my eyes. That's when I reached into my bag and placed the hospital reports directly onto the table. Silence filled the room instantly. The doctors confirmed. Ava wasn't seriously injured, I said calmly. But I had 2 fractured ribs. My mother shifted uncomfortably. Emma, we already talked about this. No. I interrupted softly. You talked. I stayed silent. For once, nobody could interrupt me. Nobody could rewrite the story. I pulled out printed photos of the x-rays. Cold, clear, undeniable. I spent years believing if I loved this family enough, eventually I'd matter too. My voice trembled slightly. But that accident showed me the truth. My father's face darkened. What truth? That you only wanted peace when I was the one suffering. The room became painfully quiet. Ava suddenly burst into tears again. But this time, nobody rushed toward her immediately. Because even my parents were, staring at the evidence now. Evidence they couldn't emotionally manipulate away. Then came the final crack. My aunt, who had quietly watched everything, looked directly at Ava. You lied, didn't you? Ava froze, and for the first time in her life, Nobody rescued her. She broke down completely. I didn't think it would go this far, she cried. My mother looked devastated. My father looked ashamed. But strangely, I felt calm. Not victorious. Not happy. Just free. Because revenge wasn't screaming. It wasn't humiliating her publicly. It was finally refusing to carry blame that never belonged to me. Over the following months, everything changed slowly. My parents tried harder with me, but some wounds don't disappear overnight. Trust, once shattered, takes time to rebuild. As for Ava, people finally saw who she really was beneath the tears and excuses. And without constant protection, she had to face consequences for the first time. But the biggest change happened inside me. I stopped begging to be chosen, stopped shrinking myself to make others comfortable, stopped confusing silence with love, because sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones who expect your forgiveness without earning it, and sometimes the truth doesn't need defending. It simply needs proof. For me, that proof came in black and white X-rays, hanging under cold hospital lights. The same X-rays that finally spoke louder than the lies. And honestly, that was the moment I finally began healing.